Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Bilingual Find Your Place podcast. Desiring to show that it is possible to make unpopular choices, even out of the norm, and be happy, wishing to prove that happiness comes from choosing yourself rather than giving in to popular pressure, I receive people who have made the best of a situation that put them in the different box. My name is Stephanie Bergo, and I'm the host of this show. I've been working as a potential catalyst for more than 10 years, and my mission is to allow people to give themselves the right to be all that they are, and thus believe that their dreams are achievable. Welcome to these interviews. Hi everyone, welcome to the Find Your Place podcast. I'm super thrilled today to have one of my dearest friend, Janie Grenier. Thank you for saying yes to my invitation.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
We're thrilled. It's the third time we try to record this podcast, because each time we take an appointment to record the podcast, we finally take so much time to talk about what goes on in our life that we don't have the time to record it. So now it's the good one.
Yes, hashtag true fact.
Oh, you and I are friends, so I know you a bit more than some other invitees I have. I'm super blessed to have you as a friend. And we met in a professional networking event in Melanian's world. So I'm very happy that you come and talk about yourself.
Well, likewise, and it's such a pleasure to know you and to be your friend as well. It's a real blessing. I really feel like we connected on that first date, like that first time we saw each other.
Exactly.
And it's been like a home run ever since. So thank you. Thanks for being you.
Oh, thank you. It was such a pleasure. Yes. So once a month, I do organize a lunch or sometimes a dinner with businesswomen, most of them. And that's how we met. I did organize one, and you came in Montreal, and it was super fun. We had so much stuff in common. So we've talked like we were 10 of us, and we've talked like all night. So it was super fun. And now you're traveling a lot, and that's why sometimes we hop on a Zoom to record those podcasts, and we're like chatting instead, because we haven't seen each other for a couple of weeks and a couple of months. But yes. So as I do with all my invitees, I would like to go back a bit and so today you're in real estate. We're going to talk about it later on, and you're doing many things like salsa dancing, which is one of the things we connect, or bachata dancing. That's the fun fact too. Jenny's dancing more bachata and me more salsa. So we go in an event where they're both, and like we're each of us specialized in one of it. So that's super funny. So yes, we do many things today, but like what I love is the path. So when we met, one of the things that I was surprised about is you went from nursing to real estate. So younger, you studied nursing. Why did you choose that profession?
So interesting. Well, real estate has always been part of me. Like I remember I was like 9 years old, dreaming that I was owning the island of Montreal, all these buildings full of money, no people in them, but there was money in the buildings. And I just grew up knowing that I wanted to do real estate. Now, I didn't know how to get into real estate. And one of my aunts came home one day when I was trying to find or figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And she was a nurse. So she inspired to become a nurse. At that point, I was thinking about being a paramedic. And it's a very noble profession. But when she came in and started talking about nursing and how more versatile nursing is versus paramedics, she knew that I love to travel. Well, she recommended that I become a nurse at that point. And I always loved the medical field, the medical profession. I've always taken first aid courses and that fun stuff. So I grew up being the one that the family came to when they had an emergency. So a cut, someone who stepped on a toenail, someone who had a bee sting their tongue, and it started to so anyways, I've always been there for some reason, very calm and always knowing what to do in emergency situations. And so it was natural for me to kind of go in the medical path, and nursing just fell on my lap. And I ran with it. So I decided to apply to nursing school at Dawson at the time, and I did my diploma there, and then graduated from that. Decided to work a little bit in the intensive care unit in a hospital in Montreal, St. Mary's Hospital, and then eventually went back to do my bachelor's degree because I had one dream, was to work with the Aboriginal people of Canada. So throughout my whole studies and my choice of work, basically, I was basically creating a path to be able to work in the Great White North. And so that's something that I've always wanted to do. And so after a couple of years of working in ICU, getting my bachelor's degree, I eventually ended up working in the north of Quebec, with the Crees. So worked there for many years, and then ever since, still to this day, have a license as a nurse in Quebec and Ontario, and still to this day go up north once in a while, because it just fills my heart with a lot of love and makes me appreciate everything that we have.
There's so much about what you said. We do the interview in English once and foremost because most of your community is English, and I do both languages for the podcast. Why did you choose to study and to live your life mostly in English, as we are both French Canadian?
That's a great question. My mom, actually, that's the doing of my mom. So my dad went to English school here in Quebec when it was authorized. So the schooling system, I believe, closed their doors to the general public in 1968. But my dad was already in school at that point. So he did some of his studies in English, didn't do a lot of studies. I think he didn't complete his grade 8, I think, Sec 2. But nonetheless, because he had gone to an English school, he was registered. And my mom, that's something that she really missed when she was a child. Her mother and her mom's side were actually English from Magog, Ayrscliffe area, and she never learned. So she was, all her life, she could understand English, but she didn't really learn how to speak. And that's something that she felt that she missed on, that her mom should have really showed her how to speak English, because it's a limitation, especially in today's world. English and French, especially English, is the #1 language spoken in the world. She didn't want that for her children. So even though, it was her, first of all. And she fought, because my dad's school actually burnt down when he was, older. So they couldn't find his records of him being in school. And eventually I ended up being in the French school for about a week or so, until I got the okay from the government that I could switch school and go to an English school. And she decided that it was worth the switch. And so I did my studies in English, from elementary school to high school to college. Then university I did in French, so there's a little bit of a mistake, and then went back to a master's in English, and grew my business in English. And just English has extremely expanded my horizons, not just only in nursing, because the French system and the English sector in the medical field is completely different, but it also allowed me to work in the Great North, where you have to obviously speak English, because that's their second
languages. Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yeah,
completely. And that's another thing where we connected when we've talked about Aboriginal together. I've in the School of Entrepreneurship, I have project with the Inus on the Côte-Nord, and they're very special to me as well. So we connected about that, and it was super interesting to see your experience. And as you said earlier, you still, even though you're mostly and almost exclusively working in real estate now, you're still going up north once in a while to work as a nurse, because you love those people, and they give it back to you also. They really much love you and are happy when you come back. And one other thing you told me about real estate is, when you finished nursing school, what did you do with your first paycheck?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So when I was finishing Dawson, so just my diploma in nursing, I did a thing. I actually put a property under contract. I was 19 at the time, so that's in January, and I'm graduating in May. And I put a property under contract in Lavaltrie for $174,000, and I didn't know how I was going to be able to buy this property. I have no work. I only have the promise that I'm going to be working for St. Mary's Hospital full time once I graduate. I don't even know if I'm going to graduate at this point. I mean, I'm a good student, so I didn't, but the bank didn't know that, right? And then, so at 19, found that house, fell in love with it, put it under contract. By the time I was in May came around, I finished school, started working 2 weeks later. So my first paycheck, I did do my first mortgage payments. I was able to close on that property when I finished school, and I was able to purchase that first home. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was, it worked on me. Yeah, it wasn't easy.
And how did you have that idea? You knew, or your parents were doing real estate, or you were like, instead of renting something, I'm going to buy something? And what was the plan?
No, my family's not into real estate. Something I've always wanted, but that push was from my dad. My dad, I was renting at the time in Montreal, and he's like, you might as well just buy your own place instead of renting someone else's place. Just buy something of your own. And I amassed a little bit of money, but he helped me with the down payment for my first house. And the bank didn't want to do anything with me, but he had a good relationship with the bank manager at the time, because it was relationship based back then more than it is today. And so he called her and said, listen, my daughter, she's going to make her payments on time. You can trust her. And eventually they gave in. He didn't have to co-sign. I was the only co-sign. I was the only signer on the mortgage, which was exceptional. And it was a 40-year mortgage at that point in time.
Wow.
And they trusted that I was going to do the payments, and I never let them down.
Very cool. And how long did you keep that property?
Not so long, actually, because I wanted to go back to school to do my bachelor's degree. So I think I kept it 2 or 2.5 years, but that was a mistake. See, when you don't have people around you that are in real estate, I sold it instead of, Janie, you could have rented it. Hello. So I didn't have that advice, and I didn't know any better back then. So I did sell it. I made a ton of mistakes. I paid a lot of fees and a lot of penalty fees because I was on a fixed rate. And well, I'm not ever doing that mistake again. Live and learn.
And now it serves you.
Oh yeah.
So what are the next steps? You go to bachelor degree, you do that. Were you renting as you sold the house, or
So
what did you do?
I went back to my parents' house, went back, focused on my studies for a little bit, continued working as a nurse. I was working in the hospital at St. Mary's again in Montreal, and also with an agency, which allowed me to travel, get to know in all kinds of areas around Quebec, which was fun. But I needed that bachelor's degree to be able to work in the north. So again,
that's why.
Yeah. And then I was also getting married to my first husband at the time, and he was in the military, and we had to move to Ontario. And in Ontario, you need a bachelor's degree as well to practice as a nurse. So all of that basically made me want to get my bachelor's degree.
Because it took many, many years in nursing here in Quebec. I think it's in the past 5 or 10 years that now they are asking for a bachelor degree if you want to become a manager and everything. So it was only college degree.
Yeah, and I've been a nurse for 16 years, and Ontario, it's been a lot longer. Now in Quebec, they do require it in some positions, but I don't think they require it yet for everybody. It's been a big debate over the years. They've always tried to do like Ontario and force the bachelor's degree, but to this day, I don't believe they have been able to.
No, not yet, and it's because of college. In Quebec, we have a 3 years college in between that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, and so
no,
totally.
But it's a great program. The only thing is it's a diploma, and it's not recognized anywhere else. So
exactly.
it's a way to keep people in Quebec. Unfortunately, when you have your bachelor's degree, you're able to travel to the US, work in the US, across Canada, anywhere in the world, really. Our schooling system here is excellent, and it's recognized everywhere in the world.
Yeah, truly. And so you stopped doing real estate while you were doing your bachelor degree, then you finished your bachelor degree?
Not quite, because I bought a second house when I was 24 doing my bachelor's degree. So I did buy in my second year in Ontario, Pembroke, Ontario.
Okay, very cool. And then
I realized I still have that one. Yeah. not the same mistake
Huh.
twice.
Learn, live and
But what I
learn.
did do is, as I was doing my studies and realized it was expensive to just, have a house and also be working and also doing my studies, I rented bedrooms. So I did rent out 3 bedrooms in my house to other students. So while I was not even in the same area, I was 4.5 hours away from where I was studying. My ex-husband at the time was living in the house, and 3 of the bedrooms were rented for $650 a month. It was fully furnished, and that covered all our expenses and mortgage. And that's when I started to really understand the power of other people's money. Yeah.
And now you're an ace at it.
I'm great at it, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you finish your bachelor degree. Do you start right away working up north or not?
No, I went to live in Ontario at that point, and I had been working in the ICU and in Montreal, which was fun. But in Pembroke, Ontario, it's a very small hospital, a community hospital, and I didn't really want to do ICU there. It wasn't really appealing to me. It wasn't challenging. I was coming from Montreal, where we had traumas and all kinds of things, and so I decided to do something else. I became a nurse manager for CCAC, which is like the equivalent of CLSC in Quebec, but just bigger. It's more regional than local, and I hated it. And so eventually I became depressed because my husband at the time, he wanted the white picket fence, and he wanted me at home, and he wanted some kids. He was military, and my dreams of going up north and doing all this thing was not possible with him. He didn't want me to do that. He didn't want me to go up and work as a nurse because he didn't want me away from home. And so eventually,
that's one thing. And also when you're in the military, you can be called to move too. So if you move one side and he moved the other side, that's also difficult for some stuff. So your marriage finally ended.
Yeah,
after
eventually,
a couple of years.
I decided to choose me. I became depressed at that point and really didn't know how to get out of it. It was difficult until I decided to choose me and to apply to an agency that worked up north. So I didn't work directly with the Cree Health Board because I didn't want to do those 3 months contracts in and out. Like, I wanted more flexibility. And so I chose an agency, and eventually I gave Gab 2 options that day to either we try to make it work and you let me go, or we're done. Like, I'm not going to stay in this relationship. So he let me go, and eventually through all that personal development and realized that we weren't really a fit for each other. And we decided to end the marriage at that point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And at that time you were traveling up north, down, up, you were working here and there, or only there while you were there?
Pretty much just up north. Yeah, I was working full time. So 8 to 9 months a year is considered pretty much full time up north. And then I would come back down. And yeah, that was basically my life back then. Yeah.
So you were coming down every 3 weeks or every month, or after the 8 months?
Well, actually, even though I didn't work for the Cree Health Board, I would do long contracts. I do 12 weeks, 14-week contracts, and then I come back for about a month, and then yeah, go back up.
Yeah. And so, how long does it last? Did it last?
Well, I mean, I'm still doing it, and it's been the northern portion has been 12 or 13 years on 16, so it's a big portion of my career as a nurse. And then eventually up there, I did meet my current husband, Kyle, and so eventually that became something else, another chapter.
Clearly. And you became also the manager of all that agency at one time, where you were.
Yeah, after the fact, when I was tired of going up north, when I was with Kyle and we started to build our businesses, our US businesses, that's when I decided it was a little harder for me to be up there because we do shift work. So we work during the day at the clinic, and then we're on call 24 hours a day. And in the smaller communities, if we're only 2, we're on call every single night, 24 hours a day, all through the contract, which can get quite tiresome, especially if there's emergencies at night and you have to work during the day too. So it became very burdensome to build a business while also being full-time up there. So I decided to take a job as a nurse manager. I became the nurse clinical instructor first, eventually became the nurse manager for the Bayshore branch, that basically the agency that I had been working with to go up north.
That's very cool. And at what time you were talking about US real estate? For now, we've talked only about the one in Pembroke and the one in Montreal you bought. Where, when, and why did you decide finally to go to the US?
Okay, that's a good stuff. Okay, so
I know you're passionate about that.
Okay, so the goal, the idea, when I realized that I wanted some cash flow, that I loved the student rentals, that it was paying for my expenses, I wanted to buy one house in Canada every 5 years. So a total of about 5 properties, 5 to 6, which is pretty much your max under your personal name in Canada, if your income can support it. And so I wanted one house every 5 years until about 50, 55, be able to sell that first house and then buy myself an RV and then retire and just live off that cash flow and be able to travel. Now, as part of a couple, so I was looking at some properties in Pembroke to buy at that point, and how, you know, how Facebook and this technology thinks, like, they hear you when you say something, which is a little creepy, right? So one day,
Totally. Really creepy.
Yeah.
Now I have real estate on my phone because I talk to you a lot.
Oh, it's crazy. So one day there's a pop-up on Facebook that says, hey, are you interested in learning how to invest in US real estate? And there was a diagram of like differences between Canada and the US. And at that point, we're not talking about all kinds of differences. We're literally talking about financial differences. And so, you know, buying a house for $50,000 in the US that can generate $1,000 a month, for example, those kinds of numbers. And we're like, so I signed us up, and I again asked Kyle if he wanted to join me, and he said yes. So we went to this free seminar. It started out, it was like a 3-hour seminar.
Here in Quebec or
here in Quebec,
the US?
Yeah, it was in Laval, at the time. And they filled up a room of people just interested in learning how to do this thing. And I was just in awe. Like, for me, hearing that person speak about the opportunities in the US just made me want to, you know, salivate. I was like, I want to do this. I was going to do something like that on a much smaller scale in Canada. You're giving me, like, you're opening up a door of endless possibilities. Oh yeah, of course I want to do that. So then we signed up to a training, a 3-day training. It was in Montreal at the airport at the time, the Marriott. And it was the best decision I've ever did.
How long ago?
Almost 10 years now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, almost 10 years.
How old were you? Because I know how old you are now.
Yeah, well, I started about 25, 26 years old, and then bought that first property in the US. I was 27. Yeah.
Where did you buy first?
So that's a crazy question, because the US is a vast country. And through our search, you know, like a lot of people are telling us, well, go to Florida. Of course, Florida. I love Florida. But the problem is, I'm 25, 26 years old. Kyle is younger than I am. I've been a nurse for a couple of years, so I have some money aside, but we decided to join a mentorship program. So we did the free seminar, then we did a 3-day seminar, which was a paying seminar, and then we bought into mentorship. And the mentorship was very expensive. It was $100,000 US to do the mentorship. And I didn't think much of it, other than I wanted to learn from other people's mistakes, because I wanted to accelerate. We wanted to accelerate our growth. We didn't want to linger and you know learn by trial and error forever. So we paid that money to the mentor to learn. After that, we were left with $60,000 Canadian, US, 60,000 US. That's all we had left to start to invest. And of course, that's really, that's it. Like, no more penny after 60,000. So we started looking at the different states, and we said, well, if we're crossing the border, we might as well find a state that makes sense for us. So first of all, we hate la régie du logement in Quebec. I hate it. It's not fun in Ontario either. So which state can we look at that's actually landlord friendly? I'm not going to go in New York City state or New York State or California, for example, where the laws are as strict as in Quebec. It makes no sense. So that was number one. Then number two was, where can we buy properties cheap? I have 40,000 left. That's all I'm willing to spend at this point. Where can I buy properties for $40,000, or that 40,000 actually gets me a house? Florida was not one of those markets. The other question that we asked ourselves is where can we get the more bang for our buck? Where can we get the best return on investment? And so through our research, we fell on Ohio, and then Cleveland, Ohio. And if you don't know where that is, it's a little it's a southwest of Toronto. It's about 3 hours from Toronto. And it's a beautiful city, which was not so beautiful 10 years ago. People thought that we were absolutely crazy to invest in Cleveland, Ohio, but today it's in the top 10 best markets to invest in the US. So pretty good choice after all. So that first property was in Euclid, Ohio, just a little suburb of Cleveland. And we paid $9,000 for it.
$9,000 for a house.
Yes, and some people think it's a chimney. You know, it's a pile of shit with a chimney on top. No, it's not a pile of shit with a chimney on top. It's actually a house with 3 bedrooms, a den, 2 living rooms, 2 bathrooms. It's a beautiful house. Now, it needed some work, obviously $9,000. It needed some upgrades and it needed some work, but it needed $30,000 of upgrades. So we paid 9, we put in 30, so we're at $39,000, which was the top of our budget that we wanted to put in. 3 months later, we were able to refinance our property because we had put in some renovations. And so we were able to go see a bank, get our money back. At that point, it was appraised for $72,000, I think it was. They gave us 75% of our money back, and we got $46,000 back into our pocket. That's it.
And you're still owning that property?
Of course, and that property is actually now a short-term rental. Well, it was rented to a long-term tenant for a long time, subsidized tenant. So that's a program that's it's basically a program that the government helps people with low income, and the government pays you directly. And that specific program is for people with disabilities. So we had a tenant in there for many years that was paying very well. The government was paying us very well. And when she went out, when she decided to move, we decided to turn that property into a short-term rental. And now that property generates on average about $2,000 a month net in cash flow.
Every year.
After everything paid. Yes.
After 10 years. So you gain back your 39.
Well, I got the beautiful thing is we got our money back 3 months after we renovated it. So the 39,000, after 3 months, we got 46,000 back from the bank. Yeah. So we got all our money back, which means there's a little calculation called the cash on cash return. And maybe later, or maybe on another podcast, we can talk about that. But basically, it's what's the return on your money that's left in a deal. That's the definition of it. If you have no more money left in a deal, what do you divide by? There's nothing to divide, right? So it's infinite returns on investment. So when you have absolutely no money invested, it's infinite returns, which is fantastic. So we got that money back, and then we decided to do it again and again and again and again. And in the first year, we got 8 properties, 8 doors.
Oh, that's it. So that year you did it. And the 60,000 you said you had left after the membership and everything, was it money you piled while you were nursing, or?
No, it was on credit cards. So basically in that training, that seminar that we did, he invited us to increase our credit card limits. And there's specific credit cards in Canada, and we're quite fortunate about that. There's specific credit cards that allow you to have 0% interest for 12 to 18 months. So we applied to those credit cards, and there's a couple of tricks to help increase your line of credit if you wanted to do that. But essentially, I applied to increase my line of credit and for new credit cards in one day. And when you do that in one day, the credit bureaus, they don't see that you've applied on 5 different credit cards, for example. They see it tomorrow, but they tell you yes today because they don't know that you actually asked for other banks right now. So I had a lot of credits on credit cards, but I knew that it was okay for me. So we basically took the money from the credit cards, pulled it out at 0% plus a 3% transfer fee. So ultimately you're at 3% per year, and had 60,000 available like that.
That's very cool. And then for the first year, you did what you buy a house, renovate it, and then get back the money.
Correct. And it's an acronym. It's BRRRR, the BRRRR strategy. So it's buy, renovate, refinance, rent, repeat. BRRRR.
BRRRR. That's new for me. Thank you so
there you
much.
go.
So you did have 8 properties at that time after that first
8
year.
doors, yeah.
So those 8 properties, now you have them at least for 9 years. And
Yeah.
just so people understand, you're still working up north at that time, living in Ontario most of the time, or up north in Quebec. And you're doing that from abroad, or Kyle is always in the US at that time?
No, abroad. Yes, abroad.
And then you continue, because now you have how many properties, not only in Cleveland, but also in Florida now?
Well, the beauty, I stopped counting. I don't know exactly, but so in the US, bought that first property, I was 27. By the time I was 30, I became financially free with 42 doors. And that was our financial freedom number. And then less than 2 years after that, we had over 100. And that was a number of years ago. Yeah.
And you stopped counting at 100.
Yeah, just because you sell and then you buy
And I know you enough to know that you bought some stuff in the past months. So
yeah, just last month I bought 6. Yeah. Just cause, why not?
just because it's fun.
It's fun.
So
Yeah,
now
so
that
we buy, so
everybody
now
knows that you're free financially,
Yes.
it makes, when you say I'm still working up north because I like it, it's really because you like it.
It's really because I love it. Yes. Yes, 100%. Yes.
No, but me, I know, but I find it very, very, very fun. And it's amazing to be passionate about something you really love. Obviously, you love real estate, but you also love nursing, and you still kept your what, how's it called? An accreditation or
Yes. Yeah, my registration was a nurse.
yeah.
But the beauty of all of this is that, it's one thing to do what I've done, and you don't need to build such a big portfolio. I just have, I have a general contractor license in Quebec. I'm certified RBQ. So I have this passion for construction and for renovations. Not everybody does. The beauty though is when I realized that I could switch from Canada to the US, I could become financially free like this. And you don't need that many properties. And we can talk about that if you want. In Quebec, in Canada in general, it's extremely hard to even get positive cash flow on your deals. The deals are really expensive. You have to put down 20%. So for example, you want a duplex in Montreal. So the duplexes, the triplexes are in the $1 million range now, 800 to $1 million. You have to put down 20%. So that's 200,000
in cash.
In cash. And then you hope the cash flow. The problem is the rents are not enough. So they don't cover your expenses. They don't cover your mortgage. They don't cover your expenses and your utilities and everything else. So a lot of people that I know that are in real estate in Quebec are often out of pocket $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month on that investment. And they call it an investment. I call it a liability. Because as long as you have to get up in the morning to go to work to pay for that business or that building that's supposed to generate you money, until it brings you positive income, it's an asset. It's a liability. So when I switched my focus to doing it in the US, where the returns are much better, where cash flow positive is a rule, I'm not going to let you buy anything that's not cash flow positive. And so you start thinking, okay, I'll ask you a question, Steph. If you buy duplex, excluding the down payment, okay, and that duplex costs you $1,000 a month, how many duplexes can you afford?
If I have to pay for it?
Pay for it, $1,000 a month. How many of those can you afford?
Right now, not that much.
And it shouldn't be, right? But most people, maybe one, none, 1, 2. That's often the answer I have.
Yeah.
Right?
1 or 2.
Not more than that, right?
No.
Okay, I'll switch the question around. If that same duplex generates you $1,000 a month in passive income, how many of those can you afford?
Many.
Exactly, infinite amounts. Because now you don't have to work to pay for that for that asset. It pays for itself, so it goes in your HIP National Bank every single month, and you recycled your money.
In
so all
US.
you need in US, yes, you're right. So $100 equals $1 million Canadian. No, but ultimately, the positive income that you get, you put in your pockets, and eventually, as you accumulate those $100, $500 a month from an asset that now puts money into your pockets, eventually you come to a point where you have enough cash flow coming in that, and these are your expenses, it actually balances out. Eventually you become financially free when you have passive income that can support those expenses.
Totally. For people listening, some of them are maybe wondering, like, okay, how come it's possible? How come she's not spending all her time managing all those buildings and houses and everything? So it comes also not probably for the first one, or maybe not for the first one, and then but now you have managing partners and businesses in the United States where you manage your own properties and some of your clients, from what I know.
So yeah, so the beauty in all of this, and that's probably one of the best things that you can do to learn when you invest in another country, is you're not there. You're not there on site. A lot of my friends that own buildings here in Montreal, they are it. The tenants, they call them, they need the toilet fixed, they're going. They need something fixed, they're going. They're always going to their property. So when you invest in an area that's not your own, you have to rely on other people. And that's first step in delegation. And that takes you out of the business so that you spend your time growing your business. Either that is finding properties, more properties, finding business partners, people that want to invest with you. It's working on and not in your business. And so that's number one. When you're not in, you have time to do something else. And by investing in another country, you kind of have no choice to hire out to a property management company. And so that's step one in the financial freedom sector, the circle of life. And so
at first you did transfer,
yes, of course, I did,
to another,
yes.
well,
and when I say
owner,
positive cash, yes,
yeah.
Exactly, a management company that specializes in the rentals. And when I say positive cash flow, when I say I get, say, $100 or $1,000 net a month, it includes that my mortgage is paid, all my expenses, my utility bills, my property management company.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is in my calculation before I even buy a property, because I need to know that it makes sense before I buy, not after. You make your money when you buy, not when you sell. And so all that is included and factored in when we buy properties.
That's super interesting. And the part that I find the most amazing, other than the money and all the process behind that and everything, you've learned many, many things across time and experiences. And as you said, you're a builder as well. You love to do renovation and stuff. And you've built in Florida, especially team houses like the Pixar, the Harry Potter houses. And you love that. Like, you just finished a cottage here in Quebec, and it's amazing. And I saw you like,
oh yeah,
doing the lawnmower and doing like the spotting and everything. So you're very handy, you love it. And the creative part of your brain love to figure out how it would look. And like a couple of weeks ago you were like, I don't love the gray I've put. Jesus, I'm gonna do it again. And then you put it all back in white and everything, but you're doing it also when you have the chance, because you still love it. So it's really a passion. It's not only for money, and it could be, people could do that only for money, but in your case, you love like every single part of it, and very much. But one of the things that is very impressive for me is the trust factor. So you're telling me you bought stuff in the United States and you did trust people there to be the special one taking care of your properties. You also have partners and everything. Has it been always easy for you to trust people?
No. Trust, yes, it's easy to trust, but verify. And you know, people are people, and unfortunately, not everybody's okay, not everybody's right, not everybody you know, is good for you. So no, I have a lot of stories that I could tell you. People do try. I mean, money's involved, right? And so when money's involved, people do stupid shit. It is what it is. So no, we had people steal from us. We brought contractors to court. We brought property managers to court. But at the end of the day, you know, you have to do it. If you stop at obstacles like that, you'll never get anywhere. Life is, you know, it is what it is. And as much as we do our due diligence and we are very careful, sometimes people are people. And contractors, property managers, sometimes they're good for 5 years, and then all of a sudden they become stupid and they run away with your money. You're like, what the, why'd you do that? And I stopped asking why questions. I don't sign up to those classes anymore as to why people do certain things. They just do. Now, it's important to grow your personal power, because there is going to be challenges. There's always something. If it were easy, everybody would do it. So it's not easy, it's simple, but you do need to surround yourself with good people. And when things happen, and they will, unfortunately, you just need to get over it. And that's why I say you've got to buy right. You make your money when you buy, not when you sell. Because in all those experiences, had we bought over market value, had we bought without cash flow, had we bought with, it would have been a shit show. We would not have been able to recuperate. We would not have been able to, go to courts. And so it's a learning curve. But now with time, and as your experience grows and your confidence grows, people, they see that. When we were just chicken nuggets, like Melanie would say, right? When we just started out, people probably sensed that we were brand new. And so they tried to take advantage. And sometimes it worked because we didn't know any better. But, had we let that stop us, we wouldn't be here today. And really, at the end of the day, you just have to go for it. Your why has to be bigger than the obstacles that's right in your face.
I'm super happy that you talk about personal power, because we've talked about your professional path a lot, but I know on a personal basis, you did amazing stuff also. Like we were talking, and I didn't knew about that part, but you talked to me right before that show that you lost 125 pounds in a couple of years ago. That's also amazing. Can we talk about a bit about that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Confidence, right? Growing your confidence. When I was 250 pounds, that became very difficult for me. First of all, in business or in life in general, when you don't have any confidence, people do take advantage of that. And the more you feel unseen, unlovable, not confident in yourself, it's just a vicious cycle that goes down in a whirlwind. And so a couple years ago, I decided that I had enough of being overweight. And the thing is, I didn't understand exactly why I was overweight. Now, my mom, my grandmother, on both sides, my dad and my mom's, they are all overweight. When I was a child, I was overweight. I was 3-4 years old. I was already overweight. Eventually, a couple years ago, I decided to join the military when my ex-husband was in the military. So again, that's like 15 years ago. But I went all in to one of the biggest gyms in Quebec, and I took their biggest package with their trainer, workout 5 times a week with them, with the personal trainer, plus the nutritionist. I was doing absolutely everything. I wanted to get into the military. Even though I was 225 pounds, I was hoping to lose some weight over the year. I'd be able to run that 10K. And so eventually did the training, took it very seriously. And after 6 months, the trainer, basically we did a compte rendu, like thank you. And I hadn't lost anything, but I was able to run the 10K. I was able to lift more weight. I was able to do the push-ups. And I don't know if you know, but when you're 225 pounds doing push-ups, like you've got to build that skill. Like it's not something you can do. And so I was able to. So it just proved that I did the work, but I hadn't lost weight. So they decided to cut down on my training from 5 days to 3 days a week. Did that for another 6 months. Continued with the nutritionist and following the Canadian food guide. And then after 1 full year of working out, again, I was able to run that 10 plus K, do everything that the military wanted me to do, but I had lost 1 pound and not 1
inch
around my waist, which was just devastating to me.
And
at that point,
but clearly there were a problem there.
And I'm like, if this is not gonna do it, if eating well and going to the gym 5 times a week down to 3 is not going to help me lose weight, what will? Like I was completely discouraged. And then eventually I went to a conference in San Diego, California, and decided that it was time to take myself in my own hands. And Kyle at the time, my husband, was very supportive of that. And I decided to have some surgery to remove 80% of my stomach.
So you did that, and then you were telling me that after that operation, it was needed that you have a special diet and you
Yep.
eat food in a very, very structured
Yes.
way. So protein in first, and then vegetable, and then fruit, and then all the pasta and stuff. And then you discovered that.
Yeah, it's so interesting because as a Canadian, just growing on just regular Canadian diet, for example, in the morning I would eat a bagel or I would have some cereal at lunch. Often at work I'd bring a sandwich. In the evening, say a little bowl of spaghetti. So I've never been a big eater, but there was a lot of carbs in my diet. When I had the surgery and I had to do the proteins first and then the veggies, and if there was space left, which usually there isn't, I'd go with the fruits and then the carbs. What I realized is that I didn't have any more headaches, because all my life I was overweight with headaches, insomnia, constipation, bloating. It was really uncomfortable, to the point where like the headaches were so bad before the surgery that a doctor had put me on antidepressant, one of them at very low dose, because the side effect was to help with migraines and headaches. And so I was free from migraines and headaches, but then I started gaining weight, another side effect of an antidepressant. And so at that point, I started eating the proteins first and so on, and realized I didn't have any more headaches anymore. And then and having more energy and feeling less bloated and not having constipation, even insomnia got better. And like, oh my gosh, eventually I even saw a healer a couple of years ago, and he told me that all my issues basically came from my diet and I didn't know. And it wasn't the portion. I've never been a big eater or even like someone who loves sweets. I don't really. But just the fact that I don't digest carbs properly, it bloats me up, gives me headaches. Just knowing that just gave me my heart,
So
my heart and my life
your
back
life.
completely.
Yeah. So it changed your life completely.
So beyond the weight loss and feeling good about myself, and really, because it was a big decision and it's life changing. And after the fact, you have to commit to doing it for the rest of your life. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know if I'd be able to eat like you for the rest of my life. Like, it's not even a choice at this point. Now that I know, like, I'm not interested in a spaghetti bowl. Like, like I don't do it for myself.
Totally.
I don't mind eating and once in a while, but I know that if I do, I'll have a headache. There's a real consequence, and I know about it. It's given me my life back, and I am so
Completely.
glad.
And if it's not good for you, it's not good for you. Like, you have two choices. You keep on doing it and then you suffer, or you change your habits.
Exactly. And you just make different choices. And I just don't understand when people say that. I mean, I'm not unhappy. I was unhappy having headaches every single day, popping pills like crazy. Now I choose different things. If I need to eat grains, I'll eat grains, full grains, quinoa. I'll choose, rice or like wild rice, things like that. Like, I make different choices. Yeah.
One of the words that comes to my mind when I think about you is perseverance, always, and about every subject we've talked about. Like, you're very focused on some stuff, and then when you decide things, you're going for it and you're making it work. I'm super, super inspired when I listen to your stories, and I'm glad I have to listen to it like every week when we talk together. Thanks a lot for coming on the podcast. I'm sure you will inspire a lot of people. If any of you have questions for Janie or for myself, please don't hesitate. Just put them under any of our social media and we will be pleased to answer them. Thanks for your time. It was amazing, super fun.
Thank you so much, Steph, first of all, for hosting this podcast, for encouraging and for letting people know that it's possible, that, when you set your mind to something, you can do something very great. And that's one of our biggest powers as human, is the power of choice. And so thank you very much for putting this podcast together. I am so blessed and happy to have you in my life and to be here today. And to all of you listeners out there, do it today for tomorrow. So guys, it's so important to choose yourself and to do now for tomorrow for the lifestyle you deserve.
Yes, and I'm gonna finish on that, and you're touching a great point. Many people are like often telling me, yeah, but it's different for you. You're used to it. It's different for you. You've done the part of the work. It's different for you. You're well surrounded. It's different for you. All of those things were not the case a couple of years ago, and I know it's not the same. It's exactly the same for you. Like, you were talking about your first marriage and it was not exactly the good one, and then it changed, and that. So it's not because it looks easy today that it is, or it was easy to come like to that point. And as you said, it's a choice every single day to choose better for tomorrow. So choose better the people surrounding you, choose better what you will need to learn or achieve if you want to go and buy real estate in the US, or if you want to have new friends, or if you want to discover new stuff. Or so every single day, like I make small choices that will like compound, and then it looks much better. So today we're talking about stuff we're happy to have, but we've been building it. And truly start today, and one step at a time. And one day you're gonna look back like for past 10 years, and you will be like, oh my God, all of this compounded, and now it looks like what I had in mind 10 years ago. And now what you have in mind is 10 years apart. Because like we're dreaming every day about new stuff and still being in gratitude for what we have, but like always wondering what could get better.
Absolutely. And if I can just add one more thing, Steph, you know, we always have choices to make, and it's never easy. So, you know, to stay overweight or obese, or to lose weight, it's hard, right? To stay in a job that you don't like, or to change jobs, that's hard. To stay in a relationship that you don't feel comfortable in, or to leave the relationship, that's hard. To become financially free, to learn a new skill or not, or to stay stuck in a job that you don't like, or to stay stuck in your financial life that's not good for you, that's hard too. And so choose your heart, guys. It's going to be hard, but choose your heart, and choose the heart that's going to serve you in your life.
Yeah, and so often, like I'm saying it, but people think that one day it's gonna be easier, and it becomes more easier for some stuff that now you have in your routine, that like Janie was saying about food, like it's like a second nature. Now you know you don't want a headache, you don't want to feel blurred and everything. So clearly it's a second nature. So that part became easier and easier with time, and now it's not even a choice, it's a way of living. So it transfers. But honestly, I've been a sports maniac for years, and still in the morning I'm like, don't want to go. And then finally I'm like, okay, you're gonna go, it's gonna start your day well. And the days where I choke and don't go, I'm like, you should have. It would have been a much better day, even though it was difficult in the morning and everything. So it's a renewed choices. And it's exactly the same for relationship. It's exactly the same for friendship. It's like I've decided a couple of years ago that people surrounding me will be amazing, and I do event like the lunch where we met because I want to meet people and get to become friend, and I make sure I call them and I take news even when you're in the States. And even so, it's conscious choices for food, for friend, for sports, for money, for everything. So, and one choice at a time compound in many choices that make your life look much more like you would like to be.
100%.
Thanks a lot for your time again.
Thank you so much, Steph. It was a real pleasure being here.
Thanks, people. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. Come back next week with another guest that has a fascinating story to tell and that will inspire you to take action towards your own path. If you like this show, I'm inviting you to leave a 5-star review. That way, it helps us to spread the work and fulfill our mission even more. The podcast is also available in a video format on YouTube. You'll find it under the same name, Trouve ta place, Find your place, under Catalyseur de Potentiel. Let's connect on social media. You'll find me as Stéphanie Bergaud or Catalyseur de Potentiel on Facebook or Instagram. Have a great day.